When my sister called asking if I could give her husband a ride home from a work event, I thought nothing of it. It was late. I was tired and all I wanted was to drop him off quickly and get back to my cozy bed. But as he slid into the passenger seat, his eyes lingered on me just a little too long, and the air between us changed in ways I could not explain. Instead of directing me toward home, he asked me to take a different route, one that led to a night I never saw coming. The city lights blurred past the windshield as we pulled onto the main road. I stole a few quick glances at him. He was quieter than usual, his body leaned slightly toward the window, the collar of his shirt loosened from the evening's long event. I tried to fill the silence with casual small talk, but he only responded with short, almost distracted answers. Something about the air felt different, heavy-charged. I gripped the steering wheel a little tighter, focusing on the road, pretending not to notice how often his gaze shifted toward me. A red light brought us to a stop. I finally looked at him properly. His expression was unreadable, somewhere between thoughtful and restless. Before I could ask if everything was all right, he turned his head and asked softly, "Do you mind taking the long way home?" The question caught me off guard. It was late, and I had assumed he would be eager to return to his family, but something in his voice, that low, almost vulnerable tone, made me nod without thinking. I flicked on the blinker and took a left instead of a right, guiding us toward the quieter, less traveled streets on the edge of town. Minutes stretched into an odd kind of silence, not uncomfortable but thick with things unsaid. I noticed how relaxed he seemed now, sinking deeper into his seat, stealing glances at me when he thought I was not looking. My heart raced, confused by the signals and unsure of where this strange detour was leading. "Thank you," he said after a while, his voice low, almost drowned by the hum of the tires against the road. I needed a little more time away from everything. I understood that feeling all too well. The pressure, the expectations, the constant demand to be someone everyone needed you to be. For a moment, it felt like we were two people suspended in time away from the lives that usually defined us. I decided not to pry. Instead, I rolled down my window slightly, letting the cool night air brush against my skin. It woke me up a little, sharpened my senses. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him smile. A real one this time, small but genuine. It warmed something deep inside me. We drove aimlessly for a while. No destination, just streetlights casting golden puddles on the pavement. He started talking more freely about his work stress, his regrets, his dreams that he had quietly buried. I listened, truly listened, maybe more attentively than anyone had in a long time. It felt intimate in a way that had nothing to do with touch. A connection formed there, fragile but undeniable. Then he said something that made me grip the steering wheel tighter. "I do not even remember the last time someone looked at me the way you do." The car grew heavy with silence again, but this time it was a silence brimming with emotion. I kept my eyes on the road, my heart thudding against my ribs. I had not even realized how I had been looking at him. Or maybe I had somewhere deep down where secrets live. He shifted closer, his knee brushing against mine in the cramped car space. The contact was electric. I did not move away. Neither did he. I knew this was dangerous territory. This was my sister's husband, the man I had shared family dinners with, laughed over silly holiday games with. But in this moment, none of those labels seemed to fit. It was just two people, lonely in different ways, finding something unexpected in each other. A small, almost reckless voice in my head whispered, "What if?" He cleared his throat, pulling me out of my spiraling thoughts. "There is a little park up ahead," he said, pointing. "Can we stop for a bit?" I hesitated. Every rational part of me screamed to say no. But my hands, as if moving on their own, flipped on the turn signal. I pulled into the small, dimly lit parking lot, the trees casting long, whispering shadows over the ground. I parked the car and turned off the engine. For a moment, we just sat there, breathing in the quiet, the tension crackling in the air like an invisible storm. He looked at me, then really looked at me, his eyes searching, asking a question he dared not voice out loud. And somehow, without words, I knew I was about to answer it. The air inside the car felt almost too thick to breathe. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears as we sat in the darkness, neither of us daring to make the first move. For a moment, I thought about starting the car again, pretending this little detour had never happened. taking him straight home and forgetting about the heavy, unspeakable tension between us. But when I turned to look at him, I found his gaze already locked on mine, intense, searching, full of emotions that words would only cheapen. His hand moved first, slow and hesitant, reaching out to brush a strand of hair from my face. It was such a small gesture, but it sent a wave of heat rushing through my entire body. I closed my eyes for a second, battling the swirl of emotions inside me. This was wrong. We both knew it. Yet, the loneliness, the longing, the magnetic pull between us was stronger than reason. When I opened my eyes again, his face was closer, close enough that I could feel the warmth of his breath. He hesitated just inches away, giving me a chance to pull away to say no. But I did not. Instead, I leaned in that final distance, and our lips met in a kiss that was far softer, far more heartbreaking than I had expected. It was not rushed or desperate. It was slow, almost mournful, like two people searching for something they had long given up on finding. The world outside the car disappeared. There was no marriage, no family ties, no consequences, just the two of us, tangled in a web of emotions too complex to untangle. His hands found my waist, steadying me, grounding me. My fingers curled into his shirt, clutching him like a lifeline. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing heavily, staring at each other in disbelief at what we had just crossed into. I should not have, he started to say, but I silenced him with a shake of my head. No apologies, no regrets. Not yet. The pull between us had only grown stronger, an invisible thread drawing us closer again. Without thinking, I opened the car door and stepped out into the cool night air, needing space to think, to breathe. He followed a moment later, the gravel crunching softly under his shoes. We stood facing each other beneath a flickering street lamp, the shadows stretching long and thin around us. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then, with a sudden burst of boldness, he reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine. The contact sent a jolt through me as if every nerve ending had woken up at once. Without a word, he led me toward the park, a tiny hidden place with a few wooden benches and a swing set creaking in the breeze. It was deserted at this hour, a forgotten corner of the city that felt like it existed just for us. We sat down on one of the benches, still holding hands, the silence between us deep and full. He turned toward me, his eyes searching mine. "You have no idea how long I have wanted to talk to someone like this," he said, his voice raw. "To just be seen." I swallowed hard, my throat tight. I knew exactly what he meant. For years, I had felt invisible too, buried under responsibilities and expectations. In him, I saw my own reflection, the same loneliness, the same yearning for something real, something unscripted. Without thinking, I lifted my hand to his cheek, feeling the roughness of his stubble against my palm. He closed his eyes at the touch, leaning into it like a starving man seeking warmth. Slowly, carefully, he pulled me closer, his arms wrapping around me in a hug that was not just physical, but emotional. I let myself sink into it, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my own. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, I could not tell. Time had no meaning here in this suspended moment between what was and what could never truly be. He tilted his head down, resting his forehead against mine. "I do not want to hurt anyone," he whispered. "Last of all you." Tears pricked the back of my eyes. I knew this would end badly, that we were only borrowing time that was not ours. But in that moment, none of that mattered. For once, I wanted to live in the now, to feel instead of thinking all the time. I pressed a kiss to his forehead, a gesture of both tenderness and goodbye. "I know," I whispered back. This is just for tonight," he nodded, understanding without needing more words. We sat there until the first light of dawn began to stain the sky with soft pink and gold. Finally, reluctantly, we stood and walked back to the car, hand in hand. The drive back to his house was quiet but not awkward. There was a peacefulness now, a shared understanding that whatever happened next, we had given each other something precious, a night of being seen, of being real. When we pulled into his driveway, he turned to me one last time. "Thank you," he said simply, and I knew he meant it with every fiber of his being. I watched him walk up to the house, disappearing inside like a dream fading with the morning light. I sat there for a long moment before starting the car and driving away, my heart both heavier and lighter than it had been in years. The silence after that night weighed on me heavier than any words ever could. Days turned into weeks and life went on around me as if nothing had happened. But inside, I was not the same. Every time I passed by my sister's house, every time I saw him standing beside her, laughing, smiling like the perfect husband he was supposed to be, something inside me twisted painfully. I would look away quickly, masking my guilt with a polite smile, pretending like I was just another outsider in their perfect little world. But deep down, I was drowning. The loneliness grew louder after that night. It screamed at me when I was alone in my car. When I lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every second we had shared. I tried to tell myself it was a mistake, a one-time thing, a beautiful illusion that could never survive in the harsh light of reality. But my heart, stubborn and foolish, refused to let go. I missed the way he had looked at me, like I mattered, like I was not just someone's sister, someone's backup plan, someone's afterthought. Guilt nodded at me, carving deep, invisible scars. My sister's laughter, once comforting, now cut through me like a knife. I could not bear the way she trusted me so fully, so blindly. I hated myself for betraying that trust, even in a moment of weakness. I hated that when she spoke about her husband, her eyes shining with pride, all I could think about was the feel of his lips on mine, the way he had held me like he never wanted to let go. I tried to distance myself. I skipped family dinners, ignored casual invitations, found excuses to be somewhere, anywhere else. My sister noticed. Of course, she cornered me one afternoon, concern etched into her features. "Are you okay?" she asked, her voice soft. "You seem different." I wanted to scream, to confess everything, to fall into her arms and beg for forgiveness. But instead, I smiled and lied. "Just busy," I said, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow even to my own ears. "Work has been crazy." She believed me. Or maybe she wanted to believe me. Maybe she was fighting her own battles too. Invisible wars I knew nothing about. Either way, she hugged me tight and told me to take care of myself, and her kindness only deepened my shame. One evening, as I sat alone in my living room, the weight of it all became too much. I picked up my phone, fingers hovering over his number. I wanted to hear his voice, to feel less alone, even if only for a moment. But I knew better. I put the phone down and buried my face in my hands, willing the ache inside me to quiet. A knock at the door shattered the stillness. I wiped my tears quickly, trying to pull myself together before opening it. And there he was, standing in the doorway, hands shoved deep into his pockets, eyes filled with the same haunted longing that mirrored my own. "I had to see you," he said, voice low and broken. I could not keep pretending. I should have slammed the door. I should have sent him away. But my heart betrayed me again, stepping aside to let him in. He stood awkwardly in my living room, looking lost and vulnerable. I stayed on the opposite side of the room, needing the distance, needing the illusion of control. "I think about you all the time," he admitted, voice shaking. "It is tearing me apart." Tears welled up in my eyes again, blurring the edges of his face. "We cannot do this," I whispered, the words a bitter taste on my tongue. "We cannot destroy her." He nodded, wiping his hand across his mouth like he was trying to hold himself together. "I know," he said, "I know. But knowing does not make it hurt less." We stood there, two broken people trying to pretend we were whole. The room pulsed with everything unsaid. The love, the guilt, the desperate wish that things could be different. I wanted to run to him to lose myself in the safety of his arms, but I stayed frozen, trapped between who I was and who I wanted to be. Finally, he crossed the room slowly, hesitating just a foot away from me. He reached out, his fingers brushing the back of my hand, a feather-like touch that made me shiver. "I will always be here," he whispered, "even if it is only in the spaces between." And just like that, he was gone, leaving behind a silence so heavy it pressed against my chest, making it hard to breathe. I closed the door slowly, leaning my forehead against it, letting the tears fall freely. This time, I knew we had chosen the right path. I knew we had done the brave thing by walking away. But in that quiet, aching moment, it felt like the cost of doing the right thing was a lifetime of regret. Weeks turned into months, and somehow I found a way to breathe again. I poured myself into work, into friendships, into small moments of peace that had nothing to do with him or my sister. Healing did not happen all at once. It came in fragile layers, sometimes falling away when the memories crept back at night. But little by little, I rebuilt myself from the wreckage. I kept my distance, not just from him, but from everything that once tethered me to that night. It was not about anger or bitterness. It was about survival. I needed to be someone I could live with again, someone who honored loyalty, even after it had almost been shattered beyond repair. The last time I saw him, it was at a family gathering. He stood across the room, his arm draped casually around my sister's shoulders, laughing at something she said. Our eyes met for the briefest moment, a silent acknowledgement of all that had been and all that would never be. There was sadness there, yes, but there was also gratitude. We had loved each other in a broken, impossible way, and we had chosen to protect the people we loved more. That choice did not erase the pain, but it gave it meaning. It gave me hope that some sacrifices, even the ones that leave scars, are worth making. And so with a heart both heavier and stronger than before, I let him go truly, finally, and forever.